I'm showing you 5 tools and products that wasted my money as a professional detailer and sharing with you what I replaced them with so that you can save money. What's going on, guys? Luke here with Wilson Auto Detailing. If you are anything like me, you easily get overwhelmed with all of the tools and products available for purchase in the detailing world, and you've probably succumbed to buying some that you just don't use. So the first tool I want to share with you that I succumbed to buying that I just don't use is the Blow Handheld Dryer. Now, this tool is absolutely fantastic for drying off engines or wheels or even the entire car if you actually want to use it for that. And having some sort of handheld dryer tool for a professional detailer is essential. But there is one fatal flaw with buying this kind of tool, and that is the fact that it has a big, long cord. So yes, in theory, it would be amazing to pick this up, use it to dry off anything really quickly, but it's impossible to do with this tool. If you wanted to use this tool to dry off an entire vehicle, you would have to move the cord around and kind of throw things around like you throw around a hose, and it becomes a really big hassle. What have I replaced that tool with? This is the Milwaukee M18 cordless battery powered blower. It's got dual battery inputs back here, so I get a lot of battery out of this, but you'll notice that there's nothing on the head of the Milwaukee, and that's because while blowers like this come with these really long sort of like leaf blower type attachments, this is called a stubby nozzle. It's nothing more than a 3D printed short version for us in the detailing world attachment for a blower like this, and I want to show you exactly how it works. To put it on, I simply slide it in, it clicks into place, and now I've got this cordless tool, super easy to throw around. I got 2 batteries, lots of energy out of it. I don't have to worry about slamming the window or part of the car with this long nozzle. This is the ultimate modified dry blower tool for a detailer. The bottom line is that in any situation where I'm grabbing something to dry off a wheel, a window, paint, or anything like that, even blowing out the interior, if the tool has a cord, it makes my life harder. The nature of any situation where you're using something like this is that you actually want it to be cordless. It's just not something I thought about until I was using a corded tool that was rather expensive, and I realized I never pick it up anymore. The next thing I want to highlight is a chemical rather than a tool, and you could create a category of chemicals in the detailing world called spray waxes, spray sealants, or spray protectants in general. And as you know, they come in literally all shapes and sizes. You could spend all of your money endlessly buying the next spray and seal or ceramic spray or carnauba wax spray or paste wax, and there's just no end to the hunt. Well, here are 2 things I've realized in the detailing world as a professional. Number 1, most every detailing professional over time starts to default to 1 or maybe 2 major types of spray protectants that they reach for literally years into the future. And secondly, no matter how many new spray sealants come out, they tend to grab one and anchor to it for literally years without changing. Now, funny enough, you can see behind me the endless amount of products available in the detailing world, and yet when it comes to spray sealants, what I tend to default to is a product called Technician's Choice. It has been around for a very long time. Here are just a couple reasons why I use this professionally. Number 1, it is a technical ceramic spray sealant, and so because it's got a little bit of ceramic in it, it tends to be good for my business in that I'm dealing with mostly ceramic coatings. Number 2, it's got tons of off-label uses. I can use it on interior hard vinyls, rubbers, leathers, plastics, interior windows. I can use it in the sun and it basically doesn't streak. I can use it on exterior windows, exterior black plastic trim, exterior chrome finishes, any type of exterior plastics, not just, of course, the clear-coated painted layer of the vehicle. So there are basically no limits to where I can use this product. I tend to eliminate other spray sealants, and I just default to this one. And before I move on, really quickly, comment below what your default spray protectant is, because I imagine you guys probably have one that you love, and it would help the community here to see more than just my own perspective. What's the name of it and why do you use it? In the comments below. The next tool I want to highlight here that I spent a lot of money on and I basically never use is the Rupes Nano Polisher. Now, it's important to say that it's not that any of these tools or products are bad, it's just that they really are not used nearly as much as I thought they would be. The bottom line is that the reason I don't use a nano polisher like this almost ever is because, in theory, shrinking a polisher down is a really good idea because you can get in all of the tiny little detailed spaces, interior and exterior, whether you're doing paint correction or you're cleaning up some clear-coated veneers on the inside of a car. The problem is when you shrink a polisher down to this level, you basically eliminate all of its power, all of its torque, and in some sense, all of its ability to actually correct anything. The tool that I've replaced this with by and large is the PXE80 little 3-inch polisher, or most of the time it's a 3-inch polisher, from Flex. Number 1, I find that when you go below a 3-inch polisher, you basically sacrifice too much power. Number 2, this is is a conveniently interchangeable piece here in the head where I can change the throw I'm going to get with this polisher, whether I want a 3mm throw or a 12mm throw, and I generally change that whether I'm doing paint correction or wet sanding. Generally speaking, I'll keep the 3mm throw in here for wet sanding, and I'll go a little bit larger to the 12mm throw when I'm doing paint correction. The third reason why I have basically replaced the Nano with the PXE80 is because even when you're dealing with small areas of paint correction, this tends to be too small. And what I mean is simply when you're dealing with scratch removal or bumper repair or something like that where you need a smaller tool, the 3-inch is actually what you want, even if you're having to maneuver it to get into small, tight areas, because naturally when you're doing any wet sanding or paint correction, you have to have something that covers over the surface of the defect as well as the surrounding surface as well, in order to make sure you're not getting this uneven distribution of pressure and this terrible scratch pattern. It's very difficult to get a uniform scratch pattern or uniform dispersion of pressure with this because you're only covering such a small area at a time. This disperses things a little bit more simply because you're covering more surface area at any given time, which ends up being a huge deal when you are trying to correct paint. And the final reason why I constantly default to this tool rather than this tool is because it is so versatile. I can get into small areas and large areas. I can change things out when I need to. And of course, it's cordless and very, very easy to use. You're probably picking up on this trend, but I tend to replace things that have a very narrow window of use with a more broad window of use in my pro world. The next tool I want to highlight is called the NextPTG. This is a paint thickness gauge. Very, very fantastic tool. The only thing I don't like about it is that it is a Bluetooth paint thickness gauge, meaning when I put it onto paint, I have to look at my phone in order to see the reading of how thick that particular paint layer is. It's actually easier when you're correcting paint to have the tool do the reading itself, which is what most paint thickness gauges actually do that are less expensive than this one. This is a good example in the detailing world of this like overbuilding of a tool in a way that's actually just unnecessary, and for me becomes kind of an inconvenience because now I have to carry two things around when I'm measuring paint thickness layers. I would rather be able to put it on the paint, get the readout right here, put it aside, and move on with my life. The final tool I want to highlight here is this air gun or air tool kit from Capri Tools. Now, I'm going to show you what I've replaced this with in just a second, which is actually another Capri tool. I love that particular company, but my only point here is that this comes with tons and tons of air tools, and in the detailing world, we tend to think more is better. The bottom line, though, is that the air tool I actually use is their simplest version of an air tool, which is just this little wand, this little air gun. This particular air tool has a rubberized tip right here, which means I can use it all over the paint and I'm not going to damage anything. It's extremely narrow, so I get a really powerful jet stream of air, and it's extremely simple. When I'm in the moment doing interior detailing, I just need to grab, spray, and move on with my life. If I'm having to use some sort of like fancy gun like this with a fancy trigger, often I can't get it in the area that I want it, and it's not ergonomically friendly. In addition to this tiny little $6.99 or $7.99 tool that I default to constantly, there is a version of this exact wand that's actually much larger. I believe the wand itself is around 8 inches or 9 inches long, and that's something I'm going to be buying immediately as well because it's going to allow me to easier get between seats, inside of door jambs, around engines, and all of that sort of stuff as well. This is a great example of when the simpler tool is actually what I end up grabbing in real time as a professional in the real world. So there it is, just one perspective from a professional detailer who has a lot of experience with these tools. I'll link all of them up in the YouTube description box below, as well as my free resource, the Pro Detailing Toolbox, which lays out every tool and product I suggest for professional detailers. Grab that if you're interested. And if you got value from this video, you will also get value from the one on screen where I show you the most common mistakes detailers make that lead to damage on the interior and how to avoid them completely. Guys, as always, from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, remember, a great detailer is always learning, and I'll see you in the next video.